Good morning. Today we're going to be reading through Chapter 2 of Part 2 of A Study in Scarlet, Sherlock Holmes story, the first story. But we're not just going to be reading the words, we're going to be talking about the vocabulary and the phrases as we go, and we're doing this live. So if you're watching this with me, live, then you can ask questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? That's the whole point of doing this video. If you don't ask questions, I'll just stop sometimes and explain words or phrases that I think could be useful to you. And once the video finished, or once the chapter finishes, don't go away because the video isn't finished. We're going to bring people in to practice improving their accents, their pronunciation, and practicing some of the interesting vocabulary words that we learned. So the fun really begins once the chapter ends. As usual, the first two who volunteer on Discord will be chosen after the video starts. It has to be after the video starts. You can't make an appointment. So we have Pachu. I have to. Sarah volunteered, but she volunteered too early. You have to volunteer now, Sarah, if you want to participate. Okay. So let's get into the story. But before we do, I just want to remind you of what's happening in the story. They've suddenly switched from a murder in London to the story of an old man and a little girl who are walking across the United States about 170 years ago, when a lot of people were doing that. They started with a big group, but then everybody in that big group died, and it was just the old man and the little girl who were left, and they were about to die in the middle of the desert when they were rescued by an enormous group of people who were also coming across the U.S. at the same time. And these people are Mormons. It's a particular type of religion, and they were looking for a place to create their own society. And I just wanted to show you pictures because the title of the chapter is "The Flower of Utah." So I wanted to show you what Utah is, or what it looks like. It's a very beautiful place, but it would be a very difficult place to live, especially 170 years ago, because it's mostly desert. It kind of looks like the moon or Mars. There are no plants and no trees. Maybe in some places, like that looks very nice. But it was a very difficult place to live, and this is their final destination. And then I just wanted to show you how far they were walking. So we've got this map, and I don't know where they're coming from, but most Mormons, I think, started in New York. You know, and they walked all the way. I don't know if this is the exact route. I'm just showing you. Here's Utah. So that's 3,200 kilometers of walking, or 2,000 miles. It's a very long walk. Probably took many months to walk that way. So it gets very dangerous, especially when you get to around this area. There are a lot of mountains and there's no green. It's a lot of desert. It's either mountains or desert. So in both cases, very dangerous, and that's why many people died along the way. All right, now that we know sort of what this landscape looks like, we should see now Utah is still a very Mormon place. That's the religion, and this is the big city that they built in Utah. You can see now it's a very big, successful city, which is surprising, because it started off, well, you've seen the pictures. It's a very, very difficult place to live. Okay, now we've got Sarah and Pachu have volunteered after the video started. They will be the volunteers. All right. So now let's start reading about the flower of Utah. This is not the place to commemorate the trials and privations endured by the immigrant Mormons before they came to their final haven. All right. To commemorate something is to give like an official memory, to talk about the difficulties or to celebrate people surviving the difficulties. Commemorating something, it's usually like making a holiday. Today is Mormon Day. Let's celebrate Mormons. Something like that. And he's saying this is not the place to talk about, to be amazed by what they did. It was very difficult what they did, traveling all that way. And according to the book, there were over 10,000 people in that group. And privations, maybe you know the word deprive, which means to... I'm not very good with definitions this morning. I better ask for help. Privation. Oh, I think I'm having problems today with ChatGPT. I used it too much yesterday, and then it limited me. It said, you can't ask any more questions today. How many questions do you have to ask ChatGPT before it refuses to answer anymore? All right, let's just get a quick definition from Google, hopefully. A state in which things that are essential for all human well-being, such as food and warmth, are scarce or lacking. It was really difficult to walk all of that way, and a lot of people suffered and died. Those are the privations. They were deprived of food. They were deprived of water. This is not the place to commemorate the trials and privations endured by the immigrant Mormons before they came to their final haven. From the shores of the Mississippi to the western slopes of the Rocky Mountains, they had struggled on with... Again, we have the word on just being added to a verb, which means continue. They struggled on. They continued struggling. They had struggled on with the constancy almost unparalleled in history. The savage man and the savage beast, hunger, thirst, fatigue. Fatigue just means being very tired. And disease. Every impediment. An impediment is an obstacle. Maybe that's a word that we can practice today. I'm sure we haven't done that word before. Impediment. Every impediment which nature could place in the way had all been overcome with Anglo-Saxon tenacity. Tenacity is an interesting word. Let's see if ChatGPT is talking to me today. Yes, okay. The lack or absence of basic necessity... Oh, wait, that's deprivation. Persistence or determination. That's tenacity. Yet the long journey and the accumulated terrors had shaken the hearts of the stoutest among them. Stout means big or strong. There was not one who did not sink upon his knees in heartfelt prayer when they saw the broad valley of Utah bathed in the sunlight beneath them, and learned from the lips of their leader that this was the promised land, and these virgin acres were to be theirs forevermore. Young speedily proved himself to be a skillful administrator as well as a resolute chief. So Young, he's the leader, he's a real person that was the leader of the Mormons at the time, I guess. So if you go to Utah, you'll see Brigham Young everywhere because everything is named after him. And it says that he was resolute, and we've talked about that word before. That means he's very confident in his decisions. Maps were drawn and charts prepared in which the future city was sketched out. To sketch something, maybe you know that word, to sketch, but we'll just take a look at a sketch for a moment. A sketch is a drawing. These are very nice sketches. Usually a sketch is more like this, less detailed. So to sketch something out is to draw a plan, but it's not the final result. It's just a basic idea of what you want. All around, farms were apportioned and allotted in proportion to the standing of each individual. The tradesman was put to his trade and the artisan to his calling. If you have a calling, that usually means, what that really means is God is calling you to that. So something special is calling you to that. It's like some people are just born to be an artist or a musician or a doctor. That's your calling. It's what you've always known that you wanted to be, probably because God has been telling you that. That's why it's called a calling, because it's calling to you. It's attracting you all your life. In the town, streets and squares sprang up. We've seen that phrasal verb before. Spring means jump. Up means up. So if something springs up, it's like a surprise. One day it's not there. The next day it seems to have jumped up from the ground. So one day there's no city, and the next day, from the ground, squares and streets sprang up. In the country there was draining and hedging, planting and clearing until the next summer saw the whole country golden with wheat crop. Everything prospered in the strange settlement. Above all, the great temple, which they had erected in the center of the city, grew ever taller and larger. From the first blush of dawn until the closing of twilight, the clatter of a hammer and the rasp of a saw was never absent from the monument which the immigrants erected to him who had led them safe through many dangers. I think I don't know if they're talking about the, let's see. I'm not really sure. I don't know too much about Mormons, but there's a very special church in Salt Lake City. I don't know if it doesn't really look 170 years old, so I'm not sure if this is really it. It might be. That might be the original temple. But I'm not sure. From the first blush of dawn until the closing of the twilight, the clatter of hammer and rasp of saw was never absent from the monument which the immigrants erected to him who had led them safe through many dangers. The two castaways. Castaway, I wonder if I can show you a picture of that. Let's see. I know that it's a name of a movie not too long ago. It's really hard. Cast means throw, and away means not here. So a castaway is like somebody who doesn't have a home, who's thrown out. Maybe reject is a good word. I don't see any pictures. Unfortunately, it's involved in too many movies and projects or products to show you a good picture of it. But the castaways, those would be the old man and the little girl. Like they didn't have a group anymore. They were all alone, and the Mormons took them in and brought them with them to their new city. The two castaways, John Ferrier and the little girl, who had shared in his fortunes and had been adopted as his daughter, accompanied the Mormons to the end of the great pilgrimage. Little Lucky Ferrier was born along pleasantly enough in Elder Stangerson's wagon. So remember, Stangerson, that is the private that's the name of the private secretary of the man who was murdered in London. So somehow this story is connected with that murdered man in London. In Elder Stangerson's wagon, a retreat which she shared with the Mormon's 3 wives and with his son, a headstrong, forward boy of 12, having rallied with the elasticity of children from the shock caused by her mother's death, she soon became a pet with the women. So the leader of this group had 3 wives, and they were very sympathetic to the little girl because they felt like they felt very sorry for her because her mother had died. And so they took very special care of her. They loved taking care of her. They enjoyed taking care of her. They spoiled her. She soon became a pet with the women and reconciled herself to this new life in her moving canvas-covered home. In the meantime, Ferrier, having recovered from his privations, so the privations, that means he didn't have food or water, the things necessary to live, distinguished himself as a useful guide and an indefatigable hunter. So we just talked about the word fatigue, meaning tired, and indefatigable means never get tired. That in is negative, so indefatigue would mean not tired, and the able means can, so this means can't get tired, doesn't become tired, never tired. So he was an indefatigable hunter. He never got tired of hunting. So rapidly did he gain esteem, and here we have an inversion. So a normal sentence would be, he regained steam rapidly, but because they want, or so rapidly, but because they want so rapidly to really be the star of the sentence, they put it in the front, and then they use the inversion form. So rapidly did he recover. And now we know that so rapidly is really the impressive part of the idea, and not recovering. Or so rapidly did he gain esteem. Esteem means like admiration. The people, the Mormon group really admired this old man and his hunting skills. So rapidly did he gain esteem of his new companions that when they reached the end of their wanderings, it was unanimously agreed that he should be provided with as large and as fertile a tract of land as any of the settlers, with the exception of Young himself, and Stangerson, Campbell, Johnson, and Drebber, who were the four principal elders. On the farm thus acquired, John Ferrier built himself a substantial log house, which received so many additions in succeeding years that it grew into a roomy villa. He was a man of practical turn of mind, keen in his dealings and skillful with his hands. His iron constitution enabled him to work morning and evening at improving and tilling his lands. Hence it came about that his farm and all that belonged to him prospered exceedingly. So he was becoming very successful as a farmer, and his little house suddenly grew into a bigger house. In 3 years, he was better off than his neighbors. In 6, he was well-to-do. Well-to-do is another way of saying rich, so he had a lot of money. Well, okay, I guess it's less than rich because it says in 9 years he was rich. And in 12, there was not half a dozen men in the whole of Salt Lake City who could compare with him. From the great inland sea to the distant Wasatch Mountains, there was no name better known than that of John Ferrier. There was no way in, and only one way in which he offended the susceptibilities of his co-religionists. There was one way, let's read that again. There was one way and only one in which he offended, I really messed that up. Let me read that again. There was one way and only one in which he offended the susceptibilities of his co-religionists. All right. Well, to be susceptible means to be vulnerable. And I think maybe that's a word that we could use today, susceptible. What they're saying is there's only one way in which the other people of this religion didn't like him. There was one way that he offended their susceptibilities. There was one way in which he made them feel uncomfortable, is really kind of what it's saying. No argument or persuasion could ever include him to set up a female establishment after the manner of his companions. Okay, the Mormons, I told you the last time that the Mormons were not liked by the rest of society because they had some what they considered to be very strange ideas. Well, first of all, they added stories to the Christian religion, which is something very offensive to a lot of the Christians at the time. But also they had different beliefs, like they believed they could have as many wives as they wanted, so they could have 3 or 4 or 5 wives. And that was something that everyone else found extremely offensive at the time. And they were encouraging him. They were saying, you should get 1 wife, you should get 2 wives, you should get 3 wives. This is what they're saying here. And he said, nope, I'm not doing that. I don't want to. So he agreed to join their religion, but he would not follow all of their practices. Esteban says, could drawback be a synonym for impediment? Sometimes, probably. Not always, though, because an impediment is really an obstacle, but a drawback is just a disadvantage. I don't know if that makes sense. And sometimes a disadvantage could be an obstacle, but not always. So the truck in the middle of the road is an impediment, but it's not a drawback. It's not a disadvantage. It's a real thing that stops you. A disadvantage is just an inconvenience, or a drawback is just an inconvenience. The truck in the middle of the road is an inconvenience, but it's also an obstacle. He never gave reasons for his persistent refusal, but contented himself by resolutely, so that means very confidently, nope, I made my decision. I'm not changing my decision. And inflexibly adhering to his determination. There were some who accused him of lukewarmness in his adopted religion. All right, you know that you have cold and you have hot, and then you have cool, and then you have warm. And lukewarm is somewhere around here. And if you accuse someone of being lukewarm, for example, in a religion, it means that they're not being sincere. That maybe they just say the words, but they don't really practice what the religion is supposed to be. So accusing someone of being lukewarm about a religion is to say you're not being sincere about the religion. And you can use that word, and I'm going to add that to the list. You can use that in other ways. The reception of my idea was lukewarm. Okay, here's hot. Yay, fantastic. Here's cold. Here's warm. It's pretty good. Here's cool. I don't know. Here's lukewarm. Well, keep talking. It's like being indifferent. Let's say that it's a synonym for being indifferent. There were some who accused him of lukewarmness in his adopted religion, and others who put it down to greed of wealth and the reluctance to incur expense. Others, again, spoke of some early love affair, and of a fair-haired girl. Fair means light, so she had light-colored hair, maybe light brown or blonde or something like that. Of a fair-haired girl who had pined away on the shores of the Atlantic. To pine for something is to go, oh, I want it with all my heart. That's pining away for something. And so some people were saying that he was just greedy. He didn't want to have several wives because that's very expensive. And other people were saying, no, one time he was in love with a beautiful girl who was pining. Spoke of some early love affair and of a fair-haired girl who had pined away on the shores of the Atlantic. So some girl in the east thinking about him, dreaming of him, pining away for him. Whatever the reason, Ferrier remained strictly celibate. Celibate means refusing to have sex. In every other respect, he conformed to the religion of the young settlement and gained the name of being an orthodox and straight-walking man. Lucy Ferrier grew up within the log house and assisted her adopted father in all his undertakings. Undertakings means like tasks, chores. The keen air of the mountains and the balsamic odor of the pine trees took place of nurse and mother for the young girl. Sarah says pine away is a synonym for reluctant. No, reluctant means I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it. And pine away is, oh, I love it with all my heart. I just want to be with it. So usually you pine away for someone who you're in love with. Oh, I love that person with all my heart. Or you pine away, maybe if you move to a different country and you miss your home country. Oh, how I want to go back to Egypt. I love Egypt. That's pining away. It's like a very strong desire to be close to whatever that thing is. So there was a girl pining away for him on the eastern coast. Reluctant means I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it. and reluctance is the noun form of that word. A year succeeded to year. She grew tall. As year succeeded to year, she grew taller and stronger. Her cheek more ruddy, and her step more elastic. Many a wayfarer upon the high road which ran by Ferrier's farm felt long forgotten thoughts revive in their mind as they watched her lithe, girlish figure tripping through the wheat fields. You know, the word faire is a French word for do or make. And a wayfarer would be somebody making their way. A wanderer, somebody who has been walking for a long time. So remember that if you look at the map, did I close the map already? I think I did. Let's see. No. We'll go back to the map for a second. So at that time, a lot of people in the U.S., most people lived in the eastern part of the U.S. Over here, and then they're walking this way. They get to Utah. Really, people are going to California, so Utah is sort of a stop along the way. So there are a lot of wayfarers, people making their way to California. So many of these people had been walking for many months. So you would get a lot of people who had been living in very difficult conditions, and they forget all about nice things. They only worry about the horrible things that are about to happen to them and how to survive them. But then when they pass by Ferrier's farm, which is probably now a well-established route to California, so a lot of people are doing that. They see the happy, pretty girl playing in the field, and suddenly they remember all of the beautiful things about life that they had forgotten as they were walking down that horrible road. Many a wayfarer upon the high road which ran by Ferrier's farm felt long-forgotten thoughts revive in their mind as they watched her little girlish figure tripping through the wheat fields, or met her mounted on her father's Mustang. A Mustang is a type of horse. And I think we were talking about getting on a horse and getting off a horse the other day. And another way of saying that is mounting a horse is getting on the horse, and dismounting a horse is getting off of a horse. And managing it with all the ease and grace of a true child of the West. Esteban is asking, could languish be a synonym? A synonym for what, Esteban? I'm not sure which synonym. I forgot to turn up my microphone. I just want to turn this up before I continue. So the bud blossomed into a flower. All right. I think I've showed you this before, but it's worth remembering, I guess. You see the little baby flowers? You have the flower up in the top. That's a flower in bloom. But the little baby flowers are called buds. That's why they call them earbuds, because it's like the same shape as the thing that you put inside your ear. They're called earbuds. So they're talking about the girl. The little bud had become a flower. So the bud blossomed into a flower, and the year which saw her father the richest of the farmers left her as fair a specimen of American girlhood as she could be found in the whole Pacific slope. It was not the father, however, who first discovered the child had developed into a woman. It seldom is in such cases. That mysterious change is too subtle and too gradual to be measured by dates. Least of all does the maiden herself know. Least of all does the maiden herself know it until the tone of her voice or the touch of a hand sets her heart thrilling within her, and she learns, with a mixture of pride and fear, that a new and larger nature has awoken within her. There are few who cannot recall the day and remember one little incident which heralded the dawn of a new life. In the case of Lucy Ferrier, the occasion was serious enough in itself, apart from its future influence on her destiny and that of many besides. Oh, Esteban is asking about pine away with languish. No, languish, well, let's define languish, but to me, languish is about suffering and staying still for some reason. Let's define it. Languish. To weaken, to suffer, or fail to make progress. Yeah, languishing is like you want to move forward, but you can't. And pining away is a very strong feeling of desire. Oh, how I miss my hometown, or oh, how I miss my whoever. So usually pining away is about, it's usually something that a teenager does when they fall in love with someone. You know, they sit up all night looking at pictures, being obsessed. That's pining away. And languishing is suffering because you can't move forward. So I think they're used in very different ways. I see why you could confuse them and think they're similar, but languishing is about being frustrated because you can't move forward on something and you're suffering for it. But pining away is a very strong feeling of love that you're not able to satisfy. So they're pretty different. It was a warm June morning, and the Latter-day Saints were busy as the bees whose hive they had chosen for their emblem. So the Latter-day Saints, that's another way of saying Mormons. In the field and in the streets rose the same hum of a human industry. Down the dusty high roads defiled long streams of heavily laden mules, all heading west for the gold fever that had broken out in California. At that time, people had discovered that there was gold in California. So a lot of people who were on the East Coast wanted to go to California to try to become rich, finding gold. And that's one of the big reasons why there were so many people willing to do that very, very, very long walk. Let's see. Let's ask ChatGPT. I'm just asking ChatGPT, how long did it take pioneers, that's what they call these people, pioneers, to walk from New York to California? Oh, it seems like, why does it say, well, they took wagons and horses, they didn't always walk. but walking would take 4 to 6 months. But from New York, it would take 6 to 10 months to walk all that way. But obviously, they were also using horses and things like that. Sarah says, what does herald mean? Well, actually, a herald, let me show you what a herald is. Before there were newspapers, there was a special person who would make announcements in the town. And you see that they would blow their horn, and then they would make official announcements to let everybody know about new rules or new important news for the day. And you can, in the UK they still dress like that sometimes for parades or something. But their job was to blow the horn and then announce important news. And of course, angels are also heralds. So, if you go to European countries, you'll always see angels blowing trumpets because they're announcing the coming of God or something like that. So a herald is someone who in the past would come into the center of town, blow their horn, and announce official news so that people would understand what's happening. And now that's a very common name for newspapers, even though we don't really use newspapers anymore. Even in the little town where I grew up, the name of the newspaper was the Daily Herald, because a herald is the bringer of news. So that verb can be used to talk about announce, like announce news is what it's used for. So if something heralds something else, it means it announces something else. I remember, here it is. Let's go back and read where it said herald. There are few who cannot recall the day and remember one little incident which heralded the dawn of a new life. In the case of Lucy Ferrier, it was the occasion. The occasion was serious enough in itself, apart from its future influence on her destiny, and of many besides. So what they're talking about in that paragraph is that Lucy, she's a young girl, and she doesn't notice daily that she's changing into a woman. But there was one event that happened to her one day that heralded the change, that announced the change, that suddenly she realized the change. And I think in this next paragraph, they will explain what happened. Esteban says proclaim, announce. Yeah, something like that. It was a warm June morning, and the Latter-day Saints were as busy as bees. The whole hive had been whose hive had been chosen for their emblem. In the fields and in the streets rose the same hum of human industry. Down in the dusty high roads defiled long streams of heavily laden mules. Laden means full, like packed. So mules are like horses, and they're laden. They're loaded heavily with things. All heading west for the gold fever which had broken out in California. And the overland route lay through the city of the elect. There, too, were droves of sheep and bullocks coming from the outlying pasture lands, and trains of tired immigrants, men and horses, equally weary. Weary means tired. And the interminable of their interminable journey. So you have that word terminate, which you know to mean finish. Terminable means can finish, and interminable means never finishes. The interminable journey, the journey that never finishes, that never ends. Through all this motley assemblage, threading her way with the skill of an accomplished rider, there galloped Lucy Ferrier, her fair face flushed with the exercise and her long chestnut hair floating out behind her. She had a commission from her father in the city, and was dashing in as she had done many times before, with all the fearlessness of youth, thinking only of her task and how it was to be performed. The travel-stained adventurers gazed after her in astonishment, and even the unemotional Indians, journeying in their pelties, relaxed their accustomed stoicism as they marveled at the beauty of the pale-faced maiden. So she was riding. So they're describing the day that she realized that she was not a girl anymore. The change, she had been developing slowly and hadn't noticed. And then one incident happened which heralded, which announced that she was not a girl anymore. So her father gives her a job to do, and she's riding into town, and apparently she's very beautiful, and even people who normally don't notice that sort of thing were very impressed by her and the way that she rode and how she looked. She had reached the outskirts of the city when she found the road blocked by a great drove of cattle, driven by half-dozen wild-looking herdsmen from the plains. In her impatience, she endeavored just means try. She endeavored to pass. She tried to pass this obstacle by pushing her horse into what appeared to be a gap. Scarcely had she gotten fairly into it, however, before the beasts closed in behind her, and she found herself completely embedded in the moving stream of fierce-eyed, long-horned bullocks. So she's going into town, and there are some herdsmen. A herd is a group of animals. So a herdsman are men who they're like pastors. They're in charge of keeping the animals together. But if you have a very large group, a shepherd, that's the word I was looking for, shepherd. So they're like shepherds. But if you're dealing with a very large group of bulls, of cows, then you will need several of these cowboys. They're actually cowboys, is what they're referring to here. And so she's trying to get into town, but there's a large group of cowboys with maybe thousands of bulls crossing, and she thinks she sees an opportunity to get through so she can get into town, and she tries to make it. But when she enters, there are too many cows, and eventually she has to start going with them. Go with the flow. So this is a very dangerous situation. She's on her horse, and she's in the middle of all these dangerous bulls. Okay, Sarah's asking about emblem. Emblem means something that represents something else. I don't remember reading that word. I think the best way to look at it, I don't see it, but maybe the best way to look at it is representation. One thing represents another thing, but I don't know where that is. And then Esteban is saying, what does motley mean? Motley means mismatched, dirty, ugly. Let's see. Let's get it. That's not a good definition. Let me ask. Incongruous in nature. So mismatched, maybe mismatched. Things don't match up appropriately. Motley is always a negative word. I've never seen it used in a positive way. It usually means like ugly, dirty, disorganized, something like that. What kind of pictures do we get with motley? No, nothing really. She'd reached the outskirts of the city when she found the road blocked by a great drove of cattle driven by a half-dozen wild... We just read this, but we'll read it again. So remember, she's trying to get into town, but there's a group of bulls, dangerous bulls and cowboys, and they're crossing. It's not possible to continue into the town. But she sees a gap. She sees a space, and she tries to go through with her horse. But the group is too strong and too big, and they push her to make her follow with them. In her impatience, she endeavored to pass this obstacle and you could say this impediment, by pushing her horse in what appeared to be a gap. Scarcely had she got fairly into it, however, there's another inversion. So instead of saying she had gotten scarcely into it, put scarcely in the front to make it very important. And then you have to do the inversion. Scarcely had she gotten into it. However, before the beast closed in behind her, she found herself completely embedded in the moving stream of fierce-eyed, long-horned bullocks, accustomed, as she was, to deal with cattle. She was not alarmed at her situation, but took advantage of every opportunity to urge her horse on. So again, you have the word on paired with a verb, and it means continue. Urge on. She urged on her horse. Come on, you can do it. Come on, let's do it. She continued. She persistently encouraged her horse. She urged on her horse. Maybe we'll use that as a phrasal verb today. Urge on. But took advantage of every opportunity to urge her horse on in the hopes of pushing her way through the cavalcade. Unfortunately, the horns of one of the creatures, either by accident or design, came in violent contact with the flank of the Mustang, and excited it to madness. In an instant, it reared up upon its hind legs. So imagine a bull standing on its back legs. Really, that sounds like the Mustang. I think the bull hit the Mustang because cows don't do that. It must be a horse. So she's on the horse. A bull hits the horse. The horse gets angry and jumps up, but she's sitting on the back. In an instant, it reared up upon its hind legs with a snort of rage, and pranced and tossed in a way that would have unseated any but the most skillful rider. The situation was full of peril. Peril means danger. Every plunge of the excited horse, a plunge is going down. So the horse is excited. He's jumping up and then going down. Jumping up and then going down. And the going down part is plunging. Every plunge of the excited horse brought it against the horns again, and goaded it into fresh madness. It was all that girl could do to keep herself in the saddle, yet a slip would mean a terrible death under the hooves of an unwieldy and terrified animals. Unwieldy, to wield something means to control something. So somebody holding a gun or a sword is wielding a gun or a sword. Wielding something is controlling something powerful. If something is unwieldy, it's too difficult to control. The unwieldy and terrified animals. Unaccustomed to sudden emergencies, her head began to swim, and her grip upon the bridle to relax, choked by the rising clouds of dust, and by the steam from the struggling creatures. She might have abandoned her efforts in despair, but for a kindly voice at her elbow which assured her of assistance. At the same moment, a sinewy brown hand caught the frightened horse by the curb, and forcing a way through the drove, soon brought her to the outskirts. "You're not hurt, I hope, miss?" he said, said her preserver, respectively. She looked up at his dark, fierce face and laughed saucily. I'm awfully frightened, she said, naively. Whoever would have thought that Pancho would have been so scared by a lot of cows? I guess Pancho is the name of the horse. Thank God you kept your seat, the other said earnestly. He was a tall, savage-looking young fellow mounted on a powerful roan horse, and clad means dressed, in the rough dress of a hunter, with a long rifle slung over his shoulders. I guess you are the daughter of John Ferrier, he remarked. I saw you ride down from his house. When you see him, ask him if he remembers the Jefferson Hopes of St. Louis. If he's the same Ferrier, my father and he were pretty thick. All right, so to be thick means to be good friends. So if he says, my father and he were thick, that means they were very good friends at some time. Hadn't you come and asked for yourself? She asked demurely. The young fellow seemed pleased at the suggestion, and his dark eyes sparkled with pleasure. I'll do so, he said. We've been in the mountains for 2 months, and are not over and above in visiting condition. He must take us as he finds us. So she's saying, the man says, oh, you're John Ferrier's daughter. My father and your father were very good friends. You should tell him. What was his father's name? Jefferson Hopes of St. Louis. And she's saying, well, why don't you just go say hello? Wouldn't that be better? And he's saying, well, look at me. I've been hunting in the mountains for 2 months. I'm dirty. I'm not dressed very nicely. Are you sure that would be okay? That's what it means when he says, he must take us as he finds us. I can't clean myself. I can't wear nice clothes. So he has to, if he can accept me the way I look now, then yes. Pachu's asking about the word demure. To me, though, that's a French word. To me, it means small, but or delicate. Well, let's see. Shy, modest, reserved. Like very submissive. So let's see, where was that? Where did she say demure? Hadn't you better come yourself? So it's maybe a little bit rude because he's a stranger. The man is saying, oh, my father is friends with your father. Tell him, mention him. And the girl says, but it's maybe a little bit rude to say this. So she's shy. Like, don't you think you better do it? Isn't it better if you say hello? But because it's kind of a shocking suggestion, she's acting very shy or demure about it. He has a good deal to thank you for, and so have I, she answered. He's awful fond of me. If those cows had jumped on me, he'd have never gotten over it. So the young man is saying, I can't say hello to your father. Look at me, I'm very dirty. I'm dressed very badly. And she's saying, oh no, you saved my life. He'll be very happy to see you. It doesn't matter what you look like. Neither would I, said her companion. You? Well, I don't see that it would make much matter to you. Anyhow, you ain't even of our friends. You ain't even a friend of ours. So the hunter is flirting with her. She's saying, oh, my father would die if something happened to me. And the man said very inappropriately, so would I. And she's saying, no, you wouldn't. We're not even friends. The hunter's dark face grew so gloomy over this remark that Lucy Ferrier laughed out loud. So when she said that, maybe it seemed like she didn't like him. And so then she felt bad and she laughed. There, I didn't mean that, she said. Of course you're a friend now. You must come and see us. Now I must push along, or father won't trust me with his business anymore. Goodbye. Goodbye, he answered, raising his broad sombrero. Sombrero is a hat. It's a Spanish word for hat. And it could be... I'll just show you a picture of a sombrero. But usually the only time that we use it in English is to refer to a particular type of hat. For some reason, my keyboard's not working today. Oh, actually, okay. I'm not sure if it really is this kind of hat, but when you say sombrero in modern English and contemporary English, even though it's just the Spanish word for hat, we always think of this one type of hat, which is a Mexican-style hat. That's where I live, in Mexico, and this is sort of a traditional Mexican-style hat. But really, it's just a Spanish word for hat, so it could be a regular hat. Goodbye, he answered, raising his broad sombrero and bending over her little hand. She wheeled her Mustang round, gave it a cut with her riding whip, and darted away down the broad in a rolling cloud of dust. Young Jefferson Hope rode on with his companions, gloomy and taciturn. So we've seen gloomy many times, which means depressed, in a bad mood. And the word taciturn, I think it means quiet, but let's see. Not wanting to talk. Yeah, being very silent, uncommunicative. So he was a little serious, maybe a little sad looking, and he didn't want to talk as he left. He and they had been among the Nevada mountains prospecting for silver. That's like looking for when you're mining for gold or silver, they call that prospecting. I'm not sure why. I guess because a prospector locates features of the land. Maybe there was a theory of, if you find land like this, probably there's gold or probably there's silver. But a prospector is somebody looking for gold and silver. He and they had been among the Nevada mountains prospecting for silver, and were returning to Salt Lake City in the hope of raising capital enough to work some lodes, which they had discovered. He had been as keen as any of them upon the business until this sudden incident had drawn his thoughts into another channel, the sight of the fair young girl, as frank and wholesome as the Sierra breezes, had stirred his volcanic, untamed heart to its very depths. So he was very much in love with Lucy. When she had vanished from his sight, he realized that a crisis had come in his life, and that neither silver speculations nor any other questions could ever be of such importance to him as to his new and all-absorbing one. The love which had sprung up, so remember, spring up. Spring means jump, up means up, and spring up means appear from nowhere. So just jump up from nowhere. The love that had sprung up in his heart was not the sudden, changeable fancy of a boy, but rather the wild, fierce passion of a man of strong will and imperious temper. He had been accustomed to succeed in all that he undertook. He swore in his heart that he would not fail in this if human effort and human perseverance could render him successful. So he's saying, I'm going to get that girl no matter what. If I don't get her, it won't be because I didn't do everything. He called on John Ferrier that night, and many times again, until his face was a familiar one at the farmhouse. John, cooped up in the valley, to be cooped up somewhere. Oh, let's talk about the word coop for a minute. Wait, how many? Okay, we're almost done. First, let me show you one thing. I don't know how chicken houses look where you live, but in the US, this is a chicken coop. It's like the place where chickens live. But if you notice, it's a very small area. I guess people want to keep their chickens together. That's a chicken coop. To be cooped up means to be trapped in a small space. So think about the place where chickens live. The chickens are cooped up. John is cooped up in a valley. So he lives in a valley on his farm, but it's very difficult to leave because maybe the roads are bad, or maybe it's a very long way to go to any destination. So he always has to stay there. And that's what cooped up means. It means you can't leave. It's difficult to leave. So Pachu, do you recognize that word coop? Pachu works with animals. So I bet he knows that word coop. He's saying cooped up, and then he said yes before it even asked the question. John cooped up in the valley, so like trapped in the valley, unable to leave. And absorbed in his work, had little chance of learning the news of the outside world during the last 12 years. All this Jefferson Hope was able to tell him, and in a style which interested Lucy as well as her father. He had been a pioneer in California, and could narrate many a strange tale of fortunes made and fortunes lost in those wild, halcyon days. He had been a scout too, and a trapper. A scout is someone who watches. So a scout could be for security, but it can also be to look for things, like go find water, that would be a water scout, or go find food, that would be a food scout. Or if it's just security, looking for danger, that's just scout. He had been a scout, too, and a trapper. A trapper is like an animal hunter. A silver explorer, and a ranchman. Wherever stirring adventures were to be had, Jefferson Hope had been there in search of them. He soon became a favorite with the old farmer who spoke eloquently of his virtues. On such occasions, Lucy was silent, but her blushing cheek and her bright, happy eyes showed only too clearly that her young heart was no longer her own. Her honest father may not have observed these symptoms, but they were assuredly not thrown away upon the man who had won her affections. So her father, her stepfather, her adopted father, didn't notice that she was falling in love with this man, or didn't notice that she had fallen in love with this man, and that he was in love with her. He was just interested in the stories that the young man brought. It was a summer evening when he came galloping down the road and pulled up at the gate. She was at the doorway and came down to meet him. He threw the bridle over the fence and strode up the pathway. To stride is to walk, usually in a very proud way. Stride, strode. Is it stride, strode, or stridden? I don't know, I have to check. I'm off, Lucy. Okay, now this is interesting because Just like we've used on to talk about things continuing all the time, talk on, walk on, always means continue. Not always, but very frequently when combined with a verb, that preposition alone, just on, could mean continue. And sometimes the word off can mean leave. So when somebody says, I am off, the verb is am, and it doesn't really make any sense. But what it means is I am leaving, because sometimes the word off can mean leaving. And that's a very common way of saying I'm leaving. I'm off. I'm off to the movies. That means I'm leaving here and going to the movies. I'm off to France. I'm leaving here and going to France. I'm off, Lucy. I'm leaving, Lucy, he said, taking her 2 hands in his and gazing tenderly down into her face. I won't ask you to come with me now, but will you be ready to come when I'm here again? And when will that be? She asked, blushing and laughing. A couple of months at the outside. I'll come and claim you then, my darling. There's no one who can stand between us. So I think he has this idea that he's going to go and find gold or something, because probably if he wanted to marry her, the father would definitely say no because he doesn't have any money. But if he can go and find some money to show that he can take care of her, then he has to say yes. Or not has to, but he probably will say yes. And how about father? She asked. Oh, it says he's given his consent, provided we get these minds working all right. I have no fear on that head. So yes, he's already talked to the father, and he said, look, if this is a success, if we find gold, can I marry your daughter? And he already said yes. He's given his consent, provided that we get these minds working all right. I have no fear on that head. Oh, well, of course, if you and father have arranged it all, then there's no more to be said, she whispered, with her cheek against his broad chest. Thank God, he said hoarsely, stooping and kissing her. It's settled then. The longer I stay, the harder it will be to go. They're waiting for me at the canyon. Goodbye, my own darling, goodbye. In 2 months, you shall see me. He tore himself from her as he spoke, and flinging himself upon the horse, galloped furiously away, never even looking round, as though afraid that his resolution might fail him if he took one glance at what he was leaving. So remember that being resolved means being very confident in your decision, not changing your mind. And so he's riding away on his horse, and he wants to look back and see her, but he doesn't want to, because it will break his resolve to leave. If he looks back, then he'll turn around and go see her again. Instead, he ignores her and looks forward so that he doesn't break his confidence. He doesn't break his resolve. She stood at the gate, gazing after him until he vanished from her sight. And then she walked back into the house, the happiest girl in all of Utah. Okay, that's the end of chapters. How are they doing this? That's the end of chapter 2 of part 2 of Study in Scarlet by Sherlock Holmes. Now we've got Pachu and Sarah who have volunteered after the video started. So what we're going to do is take a few minutes break, and I'm going to define and make some exercises based upon 4 words that we talked about today, 4 vocabulary words. And when we return, Pachu and Sarah will join us in Discord. We're keeping the video, don't go away, and we're going to practice those vocabulary words while focusing on pronunciation, accentuation, etc. Okay, so don't go away. It's going to take a few minutes. Be patient. I'll be back, and then we're going to do live practice. Okay, let's see. We're back. And let's turn off the music. All right, well, now we'll go to Discord. Let's see. Let's see if everything works. Hello?
Hello, sir.
Hello, Pachu. How are you doing today?
It's a great.
Great. Oh, that was good. That was good. And Sarah's here. Hello, Sarah.
Yeah, hello, Professor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for
Okay.
asking.
I don't know, Esteban, I don't know if you're still here, but I was just thinking that languish is kind of like rotting. I would say it's very similar to rotting. Like you want to move, you want to flourish, you want to survive, but you can't for some reason. So it's a little bit different from impediment, which is just an obstacle. All right, let's bring up our words for today. See if I can position this a little bit better. All right. Well, our first word today is impediment. Pachu, have you seen that word before? Impediment.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What does that mean? Impediment.
Is it obstacle?
Obstacle. Obstacle.
Obstacle.
Uh,
Yes. Obstacle.
okay. All right. Let's get a sentence here. I'm using ChatGPT to help me make these exercises, but I think I used it too much yesterday, and now it's not giving me very good answers anymore. I'm on probation, I think. Okay, but we have a sentence here. Sarah, have you seen that word before? Impediment.
Yes, and it's a synonym for a hinder.
Can you repeat that, please?
A hinder. It's a synonym for a hinder. Hinder. Hinder.
Okay. Yeah, it's important to emphasize the big words and not emphasize the not big words. So it's a synonym for hinder.
Yes.
Can you
Yeah,
say
it's
it
a
like that?
synonym for hinder.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a synonym for hinder.
Yeah, because it sounds like you're giving too equal attention to all of the sounds, and then it becomes confusing and difficult to understand. That's a really important thing to notice about when you're saying something. Sarah, do you see the sentence? It's on the screen. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay. Okay. Yes. His lack of experience was an impediment. Yes.
Okay. Can you say that, Pachu?
Lack of experience was an impediment to giving that. What is
Getting the
job?
job. Getting the job. Can you see? All right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was blurred, so I
Oh,
could not read. Yes.
okay. What are the important words in that sentence, Pachu?
So as a in
Uh-oh. I think Pachu's got
yes,
it.
sir.
Go ahead, try again.
Lack
Lack. Okay.
experience,
All right.
getting and job.
How about impediment? Isn't that an important word?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Impediment.
Yeah, I think that's an important word too. Now, that word experience, Sarah, how many syllables does experience have?
Or it has 4 syllables.
And which syllable has all of the sound?
Experience. Okay, experience. I think the first one.
That would be experience. Is that correct?
Ex-
Experience.
No. Experience. Okay, the second one. Experience.
Yes, you're right. Experience. Experience. Sarah, can you say his lack of experience, only giving special attention to those two sounds?
Okay, because lack of experience.
Mm-hmm. How will you add wasn't, was and?
Wasn't. Okay.
His lack of experience wasn't.
Wasn't. Yes. Okay. His lack of experience wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Can you try that, Pachu? His lack of experience wasn't.
His lack of experience wasn't.
How about?
Can I ask a
Go ahead.
Ask a question, please?
Sure.
How can I differentiate between the pronunciation of wasn't and wasn't? It's like the wasn't, was not, and wasn't
Mm-hmm.
when be converted because they are similar in the pronunciation. So how can I differentiate between each of them when I
Well,
pronounce?
sometimes a T can be optional when you're, especially if it's at the end of a word. But in this case, it would be a very bad idea to not pronounce the T. But for two reasons. Because if you notice, impediment starts with a vowel sound. So if you were saying wasn't, oh wait, let's try both of them. We'll do was an and wasn't.
Yes.
Oh. Well, actually, there are two things here that clearly show was and. Okay. Can you see the two phrases that I have written up here?
Yes. Wasn't and wasn't. Yeah.
Well,
An impediment. Yes. An impediment. Yes.
Number one. Wasn't 10. Wasn't 10.
Wasn't 10. Yes.
Wasn't. Number 2. Wasn't.
Yeah. The T. Yes. Wasn't 10. Yes. Okay.
So number 1
Yeah,
is.
I noticed. Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I noticed the difference between each of them because the T, the sound T, is more cleared than the second one. Yeah. Yes, I noticed the difference. Yes.
So how does number 1 sound? Wasn't an impediment. Can you say the whole phrase?
Okay. Wasn't an impediment.
And number 2 was an impediment.
Was an impediment.
Pachu, can you try that? Number 1.
Wasn't an impediment.
Wasn't 10. Wasn't an impediment.
Wasn't an impediment.
And number 2.
Wasn't an impediment.
That's difficult. Wasn't an impediment. Was an an. Was an
Okay, so
Go ahead.
was an impediment. Was an impediment.
Say nim. Say nim.
The name.
Nim. Nimpediment.
Name impediment.
Zen impediment. Zen impediment.
An impediment.
Was an impediment.
Was an impediment.
Number 1, wasn't an impediment. Number 2, was an impediment. Say number 1.
Was an impediment.
Wasn't 10. Wasn't 10.
Wasn't 10. Impediment.
Number 2.
Was an impediment.
That's difficult. Okay.
Was an impediment.
All right. So we have his lack. So that word impediment, which syllable has all of the sound, Pachu? Impediment.
So impediment. Impediment. Impediment.
Okay, that's true. There could be two focuses. There could be two accents. Which one is stronger? Impediment.
Paid.
Yeah, that's the strongest sound. Pe. Pe. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we also have getting. All right. So we found our natural rhythm for the sentence, which is big, small, big, small, big, small. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job. Can you try to say the whole sentence, Pachu, keeping the rhythm?
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay. Can you try that, Sarah, saying the whole thing? His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay, here's how it sounds in a very natural way. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay, may I ask a question, please? I'm
Sure.
sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
Yes. Why did you make the job bigger? And you said earlier that the end of the sentence we can make it small to be natural.
Oh, I think that you're confusing two things. One thing is the rhythm, which is what we found here. That's the sound of the sentence. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job. Okay, that's the rhythm. But also you can add music. And that is the high and low music, the high and low sound of the words. So usually what happens is most of the important sounds will get high tones. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting. But when you get to the end, when you're finishing a phrase, you want to make that low. Okay? So you've got lack, pair, get, job. Okay? Two different things. Rhythm and music. Do you understand?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are two layers. We're just doing two layers. Well, let's try the music. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job. Can you try to add a little music, Sarah?
Yes, okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Yes, so high, 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 low. Can you try it with music, Pachu?
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job.
Okay. Pachu, can you change it to getting a promotion?
Okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the promotion.
Okay, but don't now be careful because you're saying experience. You're not giving. You're not making pair big enough, long enough. Experience, make it longer. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the job. Make the vowel sound longer in those important sounds.
Okay. So his lack of experience was an impediment to getting the promotion.
Okay, can you try that with promotion, Sarah?
Yes, okay, sure. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the promotion.
Can you change it to getting more clients?
Getting more clients, okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
to getting more clients. More is an important word.
More,
So, yeah.
more clients. Okay. Okay.
Try, say it again.
Okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting the more clients.
Pacho, I'm just looking at your question. Why in this story 2 states, Nevada and Utah, have been mentioned? I just saw that right now. It's just that they're moving west. And at that time, I don't even think those were states. I don't know if they had names, but that's just the region where most of the people congregated, or where you found a lot of people who built towns. It was, I guess, a natural place to make towns. That's why. Unless there was more to it. I'm not sure why you were asking that. Did I answer your question, or were you wondering something different?
No, just I have a question at that time in my mind, and
Okay.
and just I ask, then nothing.
Okay. So can you try that? Why don't you try that? His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
Okay, is it impediment or impediment?
Impediment.
Mm-hmm.
Impediment.
Yeah, try it like that. Say it again.
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
Okay. How would you make, Sarah, how will you make a why question with our sentence? Why lack of experience, more clients?
Okay. Why? Okay. Maybe we can say why the question about was, okay. Maybe we can say why did, or yes, because yeah, why did he have a lack of experience? I think that, or
Can you just try to make a why question with the sentence that we have, which is his lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
okay. Why? Okay. Why was? Okay. Why was he? Yeah, I think yeah. That's why was he have a lack of experience?
No, we're not asking why he has a lack of experience. We're asking why is it an impediment?
Yeah.
So we're
why
just
it was an
working.
impediment. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just changing. I don't want this to be confusing, so I'm just changing it to the model sentence. So we've got more clients. Okay, so what I'm asking you to do is to make a why question with the sentence that we're working with. Okay, so it's wonderful to be creative, but right now, just to stay focused, I want you to ask a question using this information. And I'm going to erase everything else on the screen so it's not confusing, or it's less confusing.
Okay.
Okay. How will you make a why question with this sentence? And only this sentence.
The second sentence?
Yeah, now it's the
more
only
time?
sentence. It's the only sentence on the screen now. I've cleaned it up for you.
Yes, okay. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients.
Make a why
Why
question with that sentence. Don't change anything. Just make a why question with that one particular sentence.
I'm confused. To be honest, frankly, I'm confused because because we can ask about using was and did, because we have getting as a verb, and
There's
his
only
lack of experience as a noun phrase, his lack of experience as a noun phrase. So if I have to ask about a noun, so I start with why was maybe maybe why was, or maybe
No.
why did he
There's only
have a
really,
experience?
really this sentence only has one verb, and that is was. Okay. So to make a
Yeah.
question, use was. So I understand getting looks like a verb, but it's not really. So
Yes,
we're not
gerund,
talking about that. Go ahead.
yeah, it's a gerund because getting, it's a gerund because it comes
Mm.
after the, it's a preposition. So I think it's a verb too, and but in a gerund.
Hmm. So the only verb that we have to work with is was. So Pachu, can you try to make a why question with this example?
Yes, sir. So why was an impediment to getting more clients?
Okay. Maybe it's confusing because we have so many words. So I'm going to make a substitution, okay? We only have
Okay.
one subject. I'm going to show you the subject right now. It's his lack of experience. And you can substitute it with it, okay? And all of this, I'm going to make this gray. This is just extra information. It's like a distraction, okay? Really, our sentence is, it was an impediment. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yes. Yeah,
Er,
you Dutch or ditch his lack of experience, and they will put it instead of it. So yes,
They're the same thing.
yes,
They're the same thing.
yeah,
I'm just simplifying the sentence for you because I think all of these words are confusing. Really, the sentence is, it was an impediment, and the other things are just extra. Is that pretty clear?
yeah,
How
yeah.
would
It's a
you
pretty clear.
Mhm.
Yeah,
how would you make
yeah.
a
It's a noun phrase.
yeah, how would you make a why question with it was an impediment?
It was an impediment. Okay, was it an impediment?
Make a
Or
why.
a why question? Okay, why was it an impediment?
Okay, why was it that right? That's all. Why was it an impediment? Why was it an obstacle? Is that
Yes.
clear?
Yeah. Yeah. It's clear now. Yeah.
Okay, but we can change this back. We can say why was his lack of experience an impediment? And also they're all the same question, but with more detail to getting more clients. Do you see that, Pachu?
Yes, sir. Yes.
You don't sound happy, Pachu. Is it
No,
confusing still?
just no. The text is a little below, so
Is it
yes,
difficult
sir.
to
One
see?
minute.
It's blurry?
No, but it is okay, sir. It
It's
is
okay.
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 Yes.
So our question is, why was his lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients? Sarah, can you say the entire question?
Yes. Okay. Why was his lack of experience an impediment?
To getting more clients.
Okay. Why is a lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients?
All right. But now don't forget to emphasize the important sounds. Why was his lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients?
Okay. Why was his lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients?
That's right. So it's really important to take your time and don't hurry through the important sounds because it will make you sound very clear if you do that. And if you don't do it, it isn't very clear and it's difficult for people to understand that. Can you try the entire question, Pachu?
Why was his lack of experience
Mm-hmm.
an
An,
impediment to
an, an impediment to getting more clients.
impediment to getting more clients?
Okay. And let's answer, let's say because no one trusted him.
Yes.
So, Sarah, if I say, why was his lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients? Can you answer, because no one trusted him?
Okay, because no one trusted him.
Okay. And then, what are the important words in that sound? Because no one trusted him.
No one trusted in him.
Okay. So we'll say no and
No.
trust.
Okay. No one. Okay.
No one trusted him.
No one trusted him.
How does trusted and him sound together?
Trusted him.
Trusted him. Trusted
Yeah,
him.
trusted him. Yeah.
Because
Yes.
no one
Trusted
trusted him.
because no one trusted him.
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients because no one trusted him.
His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients because no one trusted him.
Okay, but it would be better if you could extend the vowel sounds on the important words or the important sounds in the words. It makes it much better, much easier to hear. His lack of experience was an impediment to getting more clients because no one trusted him.
Okay. His lack of experience an impediment to getting
No,
more clients because no one trusted him.
you're saying experience, which is really hard to understand because it's supposed to be experience.
Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You try not to run through it too. I know you want to get to the end. You're in a hurry. You're excited, but it's really important to pay attention to those important sounds if you want to sound natural and be understood clearly. Can you try again?
Yeah, sure. His lack of experience an impediment to getting more clients because no one trusted him.
Mm-hmm. Still, I think you have to work on that experience. Maybe that's difficult for people who speak Arabic. I'm not sure about that sound, but you're saying experience, but it should be experience. Is that one
No,
particular
but
word?
I pronounced correctly. P.
What?
Yes, P. I pronounced correctly
You
that
pronounced
word.
it. Oh, you're focusing on the P, and then you say, "Good, I got the P," and then you continue. You did
Okay.
pronounce the P correctly, though. That's true.
Yes.
Pachu, can you say the whole sentence? His lack of I forgot the whole answer. You tell me.
Okay, sir. What? Why was his lack of experience an impediment
Mhm.
to getting more clients? Because no one trusted him.
No one trusted him. Right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our next word, which is susceptible. Susceptible. Have you seen that word before, Sarah? Susceptible.
No, no. I
No.
didn't see it before. No.
Okay, it's a pretty common word. Do you know the word vulnerable?
Yes, I know vulnerable. Yes, vulnerable to attack or vulnerable to
Mm-hmm.
be in danger, something like that. Yeah, I know vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that susceptible is a very similar word. Maybe not
Yes.
exactly the same, but it's very similar.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
have you seen that word before, Pachu? Susceptible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. What and do you agree that it's similar to vulnerable?
Yes, easily hard, or yeah, that kind of easily affected.
Easily affected,
Yes.
easily. Actually, that sounds like something maybe you would use in your work. Like the animals are susceptible to the cold, or the animals are
Ye-
susceptible to contamination. Do you use that word?
yes, yes,
It seems like the
yes,
type of word that you would use in that situation. Okay.
yes, because yeah, we have also meat technology. So in that course, we have to uh, we study about different types of meat of animals and slaughtering, that kind of things. So yeah, disease.
Can you read the sentence that's on the screen, Pachu? She's very susceptible to flattery. Can you read that?
She is very susceptible to flattery.
Okay, when you say that word, susceptible, which syllable pops out? Susceptible.
Susceptible. Yeah, is a
Sep.
susceptible.
Sep. That's right. So it's really important to make that syllable pop out, because if you don't do that, it's very difficult to understand the word. Susceptible.
Yeah, is a susceptible.
Susceptible. What does flattery mean?
Yeah, the flattery. I exactly do not know the meaning.
Okay. Have you seen that word before, Sarah? Flattery?
No.
This is like excessive compliments, usually because you want something. So maybe you tell your boss, "Oh, you're the most wonderful boss in the whole world. You're so smart. You're so wonderful." You don't really mean it. You're just saying it because you want to get a promotion.
Yes.
A
What?
cheater. She's a cheat.
What did you say, Sarah?
Cheater. Yes, when someone does that, I think he's or she's a cheater.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The connection wasn't so good.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think when someone did that to get a job or
Yeah.
to be excessive complimentary, I think he's or she is a cheater.
Yeah. Well, most people do think that. They have special names for people like that. But so flattery is like excessive complimenting, usually because you want something.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? She's susceptible to flattery. What does that sentence express, Sarah?
I think it has a negative meaning or a negative connotation. I think she's vulnerable to praise or to praise someone to get what she wants. I think that's the meaning. I think it has, a negative connotation. Yeah.
What would you think, Sarah? What would you think of a person who will accept flattery, who says, "Yes, thank you. I know I am wonderful"? What do you think? What do you think of that person?
I think maybe someone could see, could see his or has a fantastic or maybe a lovely character because he's
Lovely?
always praising. No, I think that because other people love to be praised and love to be show his or her advantages. So I think when praise someone, so I think he maybe is a liar or is something like that.
Yeah.
From point of view, yeah, is a liar. But when it comes to other people, I think they are love or maybe they are loving to do that with him or her. I think that yeah. I think it depends on some perspectives. Yeah, I think that.
Don't you think it's important to be modest?
Modest? Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody says, "Oh, you're wonderful," probably you would hope the person would say, "Oh, stop it. That's not true. Stop." Right? I mean, that's a good reaction, right?
Yeah.
And so somebody who is susceptible to flattery is not modest. They say, "Yes, thank you. You're right. I am very smart. I am the best." And that's not a very attractive quality, right?
Yeah.
So a person who's susceptible to flattery, they will let flattery influence them. So if you say, Sarah, if you say, "Oh, Ryan, you're wonderful," I'll say, "Sarah, I'm going to give you a job." That means I'm susceptible to flattery. I
Yeah, that's my
accept
point.
flattery.
Because some people are vulnerable
Mm.
to hear some beautiful words to be able to. I think yeah, but it has maybe other meaning. Maybe you are a liar to get what you want, but the other people think that it's a really character to be here with us in our group. But yeah, I think it really depends on the character you deal with. So,
Yeah, but
but
people
I
who
don't
are,
like to be, but I don't like to be susceptible to flattery. I don't think so.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, it's probably not a good quality, right? Is that
Yes.
true in Nepal also, Pachu? That if somebody says, "Oh, you're so wonderful, you're the best," the best response is, "Oh, stop it! No, that's not true. Stop talking like that." Is that an important quality in Nepal to be
I
modest?
don't think so.
No. So
I
in
don't think
Nepal,
so.
so in Nepal, people
people,
say,
people,
"Yes, I am."
yes, people take praise. No,
Mhm.
people just want to uh, tell someone that yeah, say good thing.
It's a good thing.
So people want to take you compliments.
Mm.
Actually, no, they
Oh,
do not. Yeah, yeah.
oh, I think maybe it has to do with the influence of the Muslim and Christian religion. I think in both religions, modesty is always encouraged, and people, and so if somebody tells you a compliment, you're supposed to say, "No, stop it. That's not true." I don't know. At least in the West, at least in Christian society, that's how you're supposed to behave. And if people accept it and say, "Yes, you're right, I am wonderful," people don't like that person because modesty is a very important quality. So they don't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Is that
Okay.
true though, Sarah? Would you say that because of the Muslim religion, maybe the Muslim religion encourages modesty always and everything?
Yes.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
think I think
Our
maybe
yes.
that's why. Okay.
Yes. Our religion. Yes. Our religion encourages us to be like that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So so Panchu, can you read that sentence again? She's very susceptible to flattery.
She is very susceptible to flattery.
Okay. And what are the important words in that phrase, Sarah?
Okay. Susceptible and flattery.
Okay. So that's a bad quality. That means uh, she takes the compliments, she accepts them, and that's kind of an ugly quality. She's very susceptible to flattery. Maybe very also. I think very is an important word. We should also highlight that one. So we've got three big sounds in our sentence. It sounds like this: she's very susceptible to flattery.
She's very susceptible to flattery.
Pachu, can you try to say that, keeping the rhythm?
She is very susceptible to flattery.
Just try to make sep a little bit longer. She's very susceptible to flattery.
She is very susceptible, susceptible,
Mhm.
yeah, susceptible to flattery.
So it's like this. It's like susceptible, like that.
So,
Susceptible.
susceptible, susceptible,
Susceptible. Make that E very long. Susceptible.
susceptible,
Hmm.
susceptible.
She's very
Okay.
susceptible to flattery.
She's very
Okay. Sarah, can you change the sentence using the word infection?
Infection? Yes,
Mhm.
okay. She is very susceptible to infection.
What does that mean?
Means maybe she's vulnerable to be infected from
Mhm.
someone else who has a disease. I think that's the meaning.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe some, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
So maybe she's weak. Maybe it's an older person or somebody who's very sick. It's very easy for her to get an infection.
Yes.
Pachu, can you say the new sentence? She's very susceptible to infection.
She's very susceptible to infection.
Okay, but just remember that it's not susceptible, but susceptible. You're making that a very small sound, but it should be the opposite. It should be a very big sound. Susceptible.
Susceptible.
Yes, susceptible.
Susceptible.
Mhm.
Susceptible.
Say the whole sentence again.
She is very susceptible to what do we call infections.
Yes. That could
Infection.
be exactly a phrase that you would use when you're talking about your animals. Like, oh, they have to be very clean or they will be susceptible to infection.
Yes.
And it sounds pretty
So,
fancy. Sounds like a pretty fancy sentence too. They'll say, wow, Pachu. That's a very fancy way of saying it. Okay.
yes. Okay. So
Say it one more time. Go ahead.
she is very susceptible to infection.
Can you change the sentence, Pachu, to pressure?
Okay. She is very susceptible to pressure.
Pressure. Pressure. Where's the sound?
Pressure.
Pressure. She's very susceptible to pressure.
She is very susceptible to.
How do you understand that sentence, Pachu? She's very susceptible to pressure. What does that mean?
She is very vulnerable to pressure. Pressure means, I think, the stress.
Could be.
Yeah.
Or like people trying to influence her. Come on, do it, do it, do it. That's pressure.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Sarah, can you try to say the new sentence? She's very susceptible to pressure.
Yes, okay. She's very susceptible to pressure.
Okay, wonderful. Can you make a when question?
Okay. I think when I think it's not suitable to use when.
It's not suitable? Why not?
Because we don't have any time to use it for answer this question. So
oh no, but
maybe we can why we can use why she's very susceptible to pressure. Maybe because
I think we could use when, because you can talk about the situation. So, for example, first make the question, and then we'll find an answer. And then I'll show you how you could use when to answer. But first, make the question. How will you make a when question with "she is very susceptible to flattery"? Can you make the question?
Yeah, now?
Yes.
Okay. When is she very susceptible to pressure or
when?
flattery?
Yeah, let's do when.
Okay.
You're right. When is she very, that's all I wanted you to do. When is she very susceptible to pressure? Now you can talk about situations like when
Because she's a hard worker,
there
or
are
she's
many
working
people.
hard. Yes.
So it doesn't really have to do with Sunday, Monday at 5 o'clock, but like when there are many people arguing, or when there is a difficult deadline. See, there are many. Don't you agree that's a very logical sort of answer to the when question? I'm not asking about 5 o'clock or Tuesday, but I'm asking about situations when. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does make sense, but I think why it's more suitable for that situation because we are asking for why is she very sub susceptible? Yeah, I think that's difficult.
Susceptible.
Susceptible
Hmm.
to pressure. I think because she is hardworking, or maybe yeah, as you said earlier,
Well,
because she's involved in arguments. I think the susceptible one is a why question, not when, because when maybe we had to choose one time she's under pressure or something like that. Maybe when she works from 3 to 4 p.m. I think that. But why? I think, in my opinion, yeah, it's suitable more here
well,
in this situation.
you could ask many different types of questions. If you ask why, then you're going to probably have to give a psychological explanation of her. Why is she susceptible to pressure? Oh, because she's very shy, or because she doesn't like pressure. You're going to have to give a psychological explanation for the reason. But I think it's easier to answer a when question because you just tell me the situation when there are a lot of people, when there's an argument. You just tell me the situation. So actually, I think it's easier to answer a when question. And let's stick with when because we asked a why question earlier just to mix things up. But you could ask many different kinds of questions. How is she susceptible to pressure? And then you'll have to explain the mechanisms. So you could ask any question technically. But let's stick with when. When is she very susceptible to pressure? And let's say when there's a let's say a tight deadline. She's susceptible to
Yes, when there is
pressure.
tight, yes,
Go
there is a
ahead.
tight, yeah, tight, yeah, yeah, a tight time, yes, a limited time, yes.
Yeah. So let's say she's susceptible to pressure when there's a tight deadline. Can you say the whole sentence?
Yes, sure. Me or Pacho?
You, Sarah, and then we'll go to Pachu.
Yes, okay. Because she has, or she's, maybe I think when there is a tight deadline. Yes, okay.
So we're doing two things. We're restating the original sentence. She's susceptible to pressure. And then we're using a relative clause. When there is a tight deadline. When there is a tight deadline.
Okay. She is very susceptible to pressure when there is a tight deadline.
Okay. How does it sound if you, Pachu, can you say that sentence? She is very susceptible to pressure when there's a tight deadline.
She is very susceptible to pressure when there is a tight deadline.
Does that make sense? Tight deadline? Have you seen that before, Pachu?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How would you say when plus there plus is plus a?
When there is. When there is.
When there's a,
When
when there's a, when there's a.
when there is a. When there is a.
Okay, but we're making, actually, I'll just write it so you can see. We'll get rid of this. When there is a, okay, and then you can do a contraction when there's a, like that. I don't know, it would take a minute for you to see that on the screen, but it's pronounced when there's a, when there's a,
Yeah.
when
When
there's a
there's a.
tie
When there's.
deadline. Go ahead, sorry.
when there is a tight deadline.
Mm-hmm. She's susceptible to pressure when there's a tight deadline. Say it again, the whole thing.
She is very susceptible to pressure when there is a tight deadline.
When there's a.
When there's a
Yeah, when
when
is
there is
big.
a
When is big. There is a is small. When there's a.
okay. So when there is a
Mm-hmm. Can you try that, Sarah? She's susceptible to pressure when there's a tight deadline.
Okay. She's susceptible to pressure when there is a tight deadline.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next word. Lukewarm. Lukewarm. Have you ever seen that word before, Pachu? Lukewarm.
yes.
You have? What does it mean?
Yes, look is like not very hot.
Mm-hmm. Not very
Is
warm.
is warm. Yes, so it is
Warm is not very hot. Lukewarm is not very warm.
okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you go
Okay.
from
So
hot, that's uncomfortable. Warm is comfortable. Lukewarm is not very warm. It's almost cold, almost cool.
okay. Yes. It's a mild temperature or like
Mild.
yeah, is it 20 or those how what degree of temperature we call the lukewarm?
Okay, let's ask
Like
ChatGPT.
is 10 degree or is 15 degree or is a 0 degree?
Let's see. So I said to ChatGPT, give an example of hot, warm, and lukewarm in temperature. So according to
Yes.
ChatGPT, I don't know if I agree with this. This sounds this sounds a little bit too hot. But ChatGPT says above 50 degrees is hot. Warm is 35 to 45. I disagree. That sounds very hot. And 30 to 35 for lukewarm. No, that's not good. I don't think that works. Maybe that's a technical explanation, but I think how do you feel if the temperature is 40 outside? Wouldn't you say that's hot?
Is a, yeah,
It's pretty hot.
if you no,
No?
actually, yeah, if temperature is more than 37, then we feel more hot. Otherwise, our body temperature itself is 37 degree. So if there is 35 degree, we do not feel so much hot.
Mm-hmm.
But if it exceeds 37 degree, because it is the temperature more than our body temperature, so we feel hot.
Wait, so you say 35 is not hot? Oh wow!
Yes,
I'm just doing it
but
because I have to do a
because
conversion. I'm looking at the conversion. To me, that's very, very hot. I think it depends. What about for you, Sarah? Is 35 hot?
Yes, it's really hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. And Sarah lives in Egypt, so that's pretty hot already. All right, but the idea.
yes, this
Go ahead.
yes.
What, Pacha?
No, I think that I think that Egypt, the temperature more than 37 or 40 or 45 degree is the normal temperature. I
Oh
think,
God.
I guess only, but I think that may be wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's relative, but the point is that lukewarm is less than warm. It's not cold, but it's less than warm. Is that pretty clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
All right, and it can be used to talk about low interest or low enthusiasm. Lukewarm interest is not much interest. Lukewarm enthusiasm is not much enthusiasm. Is that pretty clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see if we can. Let me get it. I think this will probably be the last one for today. Where is it?
Okay, sir. Okay.
All right, we can. Let's play around with this in this way. All right. If we're talking about reaction, okay, what do you think a hot reaction would be? Would that be a strong reaction or a weak reaction? Pachu.
Yeah, yes, sir.
If I said a reaction was hot, is that a strong reaction or no?
So it is not hard.
No.
Yeah.
If I say his reaction was hot, how would you interpret the reaction? Would it be a strong or weak reaction?
Yes, so it is strong.
Okay. And do you think it would be, what kind of feelings do you think would come with that? His reaction was hot.
So either aggressive or
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Could
aggressive
be
type.
aggressive. Maybe also enthusiastic. Depends on the situation. But something strong, a strong feeling. Maybe angry, but also maybe good. Sarah, what if I said his
Yeah.
reaction was cold?
Was cold. If
Yeah.
I think, yeah, he's relieved.
Is that a good reaction or a bad reaction, do you think?
A good reaction.
You know, cold, maybe it's different because you're in Egypt, but cold is usually a bad thing.
Yeah, he
Maybe for
hasn't any sense. Yeah,
what
he hasn't any sense for what's going around him or her. Yeah, I think that.
if you say cold, that means like no interest. Or if someone is cold, that means not friendly. Usually cold has a negative connotation. Maybe in Egypt it doesn't because when you feel cold, you think, "Oh, thank goodness. What a relief."
No,
It's not 40
no, it's
anymore.
not.
But Pachi would say, "Well,
No, no,
40
it
is
has a
comfortable."
similar meaning. No, it
What?
has a similar meaning. Yeah, it has a similar meaning in Egypt as well.
Oh, it
When
does.
call
Okay.
when yeah, when call someone he's a cold or she's a cold. Yeah, she has or he has no sense or for what's going around him. Yeah, I think yeah, it has the same meaning for us
Okay.
as well.
Okay. So if we say his reaction to the idea was lukewarm, Sarah, what does that mean?
Lukewarm, I think he doesn't or she doesn't have any sense or any responsibility for anything. Yeah, I think that.
Well, there's a little bit because it's not cold. Cold would be no. But lukewarm is, I don't know. Do you understand?
Yes, yes, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hot could be a very big reaction. Cold is no reaction. Lukewarm is, oh, I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure. Is that pretty clear, Pachu, what that means?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you read the full sentence, Pachu? What does it say?
His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Okay. Now, when you have two words together like that, luke and warm, which word will get the focus? Luke or warm? Probably, most of the time.
As look
Okay.
lukewarm.
Yeah, so you have to say
Lukewarm.
lukewarm, not lukewarm. Because if you say that, actually, maybe people will not understand the word. So you must emphasize the first part. Lukewarm. Lukewarm.
is lukewarm. Is a lukewarm.
Can you read the whole sentence again, Pachu?
His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Okay. Can you say that, Sarah? The whole sentence?
Yes, okay. His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Okay. What are the other important words in that sentence, Sarah?
Reaction and idea.
Okay. And reaction, how many syllables does that have?
2.
Actually, it has 3.
3, okay.
Reaction.
Action. Yes,
You hear the 3 syllables?
reaction. Yes, 3 syllables. Yes.
And which syllable gets all of the focus?
Reaction. The second syllable.
The second syllable, reaction.
Yes.
Can you say that? Reaction.
Reaction.
And also you said idea, right?
Yes.
How many
That's one.
syllables does that word have?
2 syllables.
Oh, idea. It has 3.
3?
Yes, it has
No,
3.
2.
Idea.
Idea. Yes, okay. But I think 2.
No, it's 3. I'm sure about that. Which syllable has all of the stress? Idea.
Idea. Okay. The second syllable, yes.
Second syllable. Right. Okay. So first syllable I, second syllable D, final syllable a. All right. So now we have the rhythm of the sentence, which is big, small, big, small, big, small. His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Can you try to say the whole sentence, Pachu, keeping the rhythm?
His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Okay, but now, Pachu, the word idea has 3 syllables. Which syllable gets all of the attention?
It's D.
That's right.
D.
Not I. It's not idea, but idea.
Okay. So yes, I used to say I is stronger. So this is the incorrect.
Yes.
So I have to say the D. Okay?
That's right.
So can I read again?
Please.
Yeah. His reaction to the idea was lukewarm.
Okay, that was very good.
Idea. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to change lukewarm to another word, which is half-hearted. 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 Have you seen that word before? Half-hearted, Pachu?
Half-parted.
Half-hearted.
Hearted.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
That means like
Half-hearted.
insincere.
This is
Go ahead.
okay. No, I just this is same as the timid. No.
Timid means like shy. Half-hearted means insincere, or maybe not giving 100%, only giving 50%.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Oh, let's see. I studied English for 2 years, half-hearted, with only half of my heart. Okay, that's what it means. Half-heartedly. But then I got serious and studied every day for a year. What does that mean? I used to study English for 2 years half-heartedly.
Yes, so I studied 2 years English, but not sincerely, insincere way.
You didn't try. You didn't try 100%. You only gave 50% of your heart.
Yes, 50%, and then I got serious studies every day for a year. Yes.
Serious and studied
Yes.
every day for a year. Have you seen that expression before, Sarah? Half-hearted, half-heartedly?
Yes, I saw it before, yeah.
Okay. Can you say the new sentence? His reaction to the idea was half-hearted.
Okay, his reaction to the idea was half-hearted.
Okay, and when you have two words together, like half and hearted, you want to emphasize the first word. So you say it like this: half-hearted.
Half-hearted.
Yes, so you really put a lot of emphasis on the word half.
Half, yes.
Half-hearted. Pachu,
Half-hearted.
can you say that sentence?
His reaction to the idea was half-hearted.
Okay, his reaction to the idea was half-hearted. Right. Okay. Sarah, let's change the sentence again, and this time let's use unenthusiastic. Unenthusiastic.
Unenthusiastic. Okay, unenthusiastic. Okay. His reaction to the idea was unenthusiastic.
Okay, his reaction to the idea was unenthusiastic.
Unenthusiastic. Okay. Unenthusiastic. Yes. Okay.
Pachu, can you say that sentence?
His reaction to the idea was unenthusiastic.
Okay, and I think unenthusiastic. I think I would put the emphasis on on.
Okay, so was unenthusiastic.
Okay.
Unenthusiastic.
Pachu, can you make a why question?
So, why was his reaction to the idea half-hearted?
Let's do unenthusiastic. Let's do that one.
Okay, so why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic?
Okay, but remember, on, that's a very important sound. Unenthusiastic.
Unenthusiastic.
Why was
Unenthusiastic.
why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic?
Why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic?
Okay, and Esteban says, could you expound more on the word half-hearted? Well, if you only give 50% of your heart to a project, that's probably not good if you want to succeed. You should give 100%. So being half-hearted means being insincere or not trying enough or not trying 100%, only giving 50% of your heart. Does that make sense, Esteban? Okay, Sarah, can you try the why question? Why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic?
Okay. Why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic?
Okay, and what could be our reason? How could we answer it? See what happens to the kind of trouble you get into when you ask a why question? Now we have to answer it with a because. What do you think, Sarah? How could you answer that question with because?
Okay, because I think because he got fired.
Okay, because he lost his job.
Yes.
Let's say that because he lost his job.
Okay.
So of course
Because
he was unenthusiastic.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so let's try to say the whole sentence, which is his reaction to the idea was unenthusiastic because he lost his job. Try to keep the rhythm.
Okay. His reaction to the idea was half-hearted or yes. I think that
Unenthusiastic.
yes, his enthusiastic, yes, okay. His reaction to the idea was enthusiastic because maybe he lost his job.
Okay. That's a hard word to say, isn't it? Unenthusiastic. How many syllables in that word?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Unenthusiastic.
6 syllables.
Wait. Unenthusiastic. Yes, 6 syllables.
6.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we're going to emphasize the first syllable. But let me break down how all of those syllables sound together, because that's a pretty hard word to say for people. Really, this is nen, thu, zia, stick. Unenthusiastic. Oh. Unenthusiastic. Like that. Can you say that word?
Unenthusiastic. Yes.
Unenthusiastic. Actually, because it's a 6-syllable word, usually if a word has more than 3 syllables, it will have 2 accents, and that yeah is pretty big. And I think the un part is also big. It must be big because it makes it negative. So let's say that this has 2 really big stresses in it. It's such a big word. Unenthusiastic.
Unenthusiastic.
Mm-hmm. Can you try to say that word, Pachu?
Unenthusiastic.
Mm-hmm. Unenthusiastic. So there are 2 really big sounds in that word. It's such a big word. It's got 6 syllables.
Yes, sir.
So Pachu, why was his reaction to the idea unenthusiastic? What is the answer?
His reaction to the idea was unenthusiastic because he lost his job.
Okay, is it idea or idea?
Okay, sorry. So idea.
Yes, yes. That's important if you want to be
Idea.
understood.
Idea.
Idea. All right, I think that we have to finish here for today. So let's see. Are we doing Sherlock Holmes tomorrow? I've got to figure out on the schedule when to do our next IELTS. We'll try to do it sometime next week. Just let me think about it. Okay, yeah. So tomorrow, I think we'll do Sherlock Holmes again at the same time, or a little bit earlier. Today I was a little bit late, so yeah, that would be okay tomorrow. All right. Well, thank you for volunteering. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow when we continue Sherlock Holmes. I'll figure out the IELTS thing today, and I'll figure out a time, and we'll make sure to do a couple of those next week. Okay.
Yes,
So
okay.
I'll see everybody later. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.